Welcome to the NCDWI Guy podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI Guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 140 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, we have special guest marketing guru Chris Dreyer with us. Chris is the founder and CEO of Rankings.io and the host of the Personal Injury Marketing Mastermind podcast. Since 2018, his website, his company has been included on the Inc. 500 each year, including 2021. His agency received the UpCity Excellence Award, an honor reserved for the top 1% of the nation's marketing agency. On today's episode, Chris talks about SEO. His company focuses on taking lawyers' websites, lawyers' online presence to the next level. He talks to us about SEO. He also recently released on Amazon his book, Niching Up. So he's going to talk as well about the power and impact that niching your practice has and the way that that contributes to online marketing success. Very excited to share this conversation with Chris with you all. Well, Chris, I'm excited to have you on the podcast today. Just tell us maybe a little bit about kind of what you got you into the space of legal marketing to begin with.
Really simple question. The money, right?
That's it. I love it.
I had a history education degree, and I was going to be a college basketball coach, and I was working my way up the ladder. I was a JV basketball coach, and I was in a detention room. I had a job as a detention room teacher, alternative classroom.
Which is the most coveted of all teaching positions.
Absolutely. I grew up quickly in there, but
you did.
I Googled how to make money online. Probably the worst query ever. And I found this course, Ed Dale's affiliate marketing course to make your first $10 through digital marketing. And I think it made like $20, but it gave me the insight and the lingo to pursue that education further. So by the end of my second year teaching, I was making like 4 times the amount doing that than I was teaching. So it was a pretty easy career path change. Yeah. And it opened my eyes up to a lot of opportunity. And that's kind of where I jumped in.
And then in terms of like kind of heading into the legal market space, what kind of was the bridge that got you into helping lawyers on that front specifically?
Couple things. I did work at an agency when my affiliate marketing income went boom and went to nothing, basically. We can talk about that if you want, but I got a job, and a lot of their clients were attorneys, and I enjoyed working with them. I am a super competitive person, so I like a bigger challenge when it comes to search engine optimization, which is my core specialization. And yeah, I worked with them, and it was a natural transition. The other thing that I'll be really transparent is their status in the legal vertical compared to maybe other industries where, hey, you're a digital marketer for X, and I'll let your brain insert whatever you want, right, versus you're a digital marketer for attorneys.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's so interesting how different people kind of get into the, kind of marketing space, the online marketing space. My brother, Jeremy, had kind of right out of college, started his own kind of, marketing group, and, was doing kind of all different industries. And now he works for a company as their kind of social media primarily outreach. But it's such an interesting way, that people from all different backgrounds, people that are like you in teaching, it's a second career. It's something where, somebody's got some sort of feel for maybe the tech industry. And so it's that kind of like easy vehicle in, but in terms of kind of the developments that you've seen. The SEO landscape has just been, monumental, constant shifts, especially, I mean, because this is what I know in the legal industry. So in terms of like the big changes or big shifts that you've seen in the legal industry since you started in that SEO space, what are kind of some of the biggest changes that you've seen, in terms of like kind of big picture?
Ton of changes. Google is essentially a library. It's a repository of information.
That's a great way of thinking about it.
Several years ago, if you wrote an article that wasn't covered by very many people, you could automatically rank because that topic wasn't covered.
Right.
Today, I mean, 2016, they had 10 trillion landing pages or something crazy. 10 trillion websites. And now like we can't even fathom how many there are. Right. So
right.
A lot of the information and it's already in the library. So it's changed from, instead of just doing it, to more of a qualitative perspective, because the quantitative has been there through technology, and now we even got AI jumping in there.
Right.
And so it's been a big shift. So in the past, you could write an article, those 500 words, and cover a topic, and you might rank. But now they want more thorough information. You have to write a longer article. It has to be very well researched, better formatting, all the UX signals. It's just become more challenging because the information already exists. So you have to have a different perspective. And that's in numerous ways, in all aspects of SEO, right? It could be the content, could be the link quality that you're receiving, those endorsements. It could be the amount of reviews, where now we're in this arms race when it comes to reviews. So it's just been a big shift. It's constantly evolving. We are a traction-based agency, and we don't have a soft leadership L10. We call ours the war room because it's constantly changing, and it's a bloodbath.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a a good way of thinking about Google as that kind of brain, but it's a place where information is stored. And yeah, that long tail form was something that we kind of went after for a long time, in terms of blog articles getting very into the weeds with what the question at issue was. So it's interesting to kind of hear that as there's more people in that space now to compete, you've got to really not only kind of answer the strange question, so to speak, but also just have a very well written and researched answer to that, which I definitely, in the past, it was just, you could have just put the question up there and put a non-responsive answer in. And as long as the question was the right question, Google's going to find the right question. But it is amazing how, how the Google brain is just getting so much better at getting to the end user the information that they're looking for.
Yeah, completely agree.
In terms of kind of what, since you work with attorneys and kind of see on a day-to-day basis what's working in the SEO world for firms and what's not, what is kind of some of the common mistakes that you see attorneys make when it comes to kind of marketing strategy, business strategy?
I'll hit each of the buckets. So the three big buckets, right? Or let me give you some tips. So the first thing is content. A lot of times for the criminal defense attorneys listening, you have your practice area page, your sales page. Let's just say you have a DUI lawyer page and it's built, it's done. I'm going to move on to the next page,
right,
or topic, but you may need to revisit that and continually update it every single year. When it clicks over from 2022 to 2023, the best thing that you can do is refresh your most important pages, update that publish date to 2023, because the legal and medical industries are more heavily scrutinized. I like to make this comparison to try to make this stand out, as if I'm sick and I go Google my symptoms and I see Mayo Clinic 2016 and I see 2022 or 2023 in the future, I'm going to the more current article. So because legal is more scrutinized, you need to refresh your content and not always consider a new topic, but refreshing the existing. So that's a big one.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, that is something that, I mean, just from a consumer perspective, that, I definitely pay close attention to when something was written, when I'm researching something, and, the newer on the whole wins out over something that was written 4 or 5 years back. And that's something that, I mean, even kind of taking kind of live notes here, that's something that we have not done a great job of refreshing some of that content. And so when you go look up, one of our old blog articles, again, it'll still rank fairly well for one of the topics, on limited driving privileges or whatever it might be. But even if it's in the top couple of search items, if it's from 2012, 2013, most people are going to look for that one that was written last year to make sure that they're getting the most up-to-date info. So I love that.
And not only from a consumer perspective, but also the media.
Yes.
We're all trying to earn backlinks.
Yes.
And they want to cite relevant current sources. So it also impacts your ability to earn those natural links. Let's just stay right there. On the link side, so a link from another website is essentially an endorsement of your website or your content. And if you're trying to win an election, you want to get as many votes as possible. If you're trying to earn the first page of Google, you want to get as many high quality links as possible. And this one is being more cognizant of relationships and the impact that links have on your rankings. A lot of attorneys will be willing to write content themselves or have their team do it, right? Or even go down the review path, and they're good at that, but it's not Field of Dreams. It's not if you build the content, they will come. You have to get those endorsements. So being aware of those. So when you sponsor an event and you have a sponsorship page, make sure they put a link in it. When you're interviewed or on a news panel, make sure you ask that person if you can get a link back to your website. If you go sign up for a Chamber of Commerce, make sure you get a link in their link directory, or any legal directory, a legal ward. It's being cognizant of those links being very, very important. And that's where attorneys get into trouble. If they have a partner and they break off into two different websites, or they change domains, those links really help your content rank. So just be aware of their importance and their value. So it's once you're aware of it, you'll see the opportunities more than you think, because they're in front of you every single day.
In terms of kind of just trying to kind of build a backlink campaign, or think through, how to try to generate backlinks, what do you advise clients in terms of somebody that's trying to make that a real kind of point of emphasis, let's say going into next year, or, for this quarter, we're really going to try to like build up our backlinks. Are there certain places where you say definitely go to, Chamber of Commerce first, or, in terms of a backlink strategy, what advice do you offer to clients on that front?
The first thing I would do is I would utilize a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush and plug in your competitors in your market to see where there's a gap. What links do they have that you don't? So Ahrefs and SEMrush will tell you those. So you can be intentional and go try to acquire those. That's table stakes. You have to do that.
Okay.
In order to have a chance to rank. But then you need to think about, what are my unique advantages? What do I have that's not easy to replicate? Could be a relationship. It could be a podcast like you have, or video, or maybe a white paper. Maybe you're on you're a teacher, right? You're a professor, right? And you have a bio page there. What do you have that your competitors don't have? Those are your moats. You want to try to create as many of those as possible. So if you're in a market where maybe nobody's written a book, maybe you want to go hire a scribe to go write a book, because then you can earn links from having a book. A book will allow you to get on podcasts more easily. So first you want to start with, what am I missing? What's table stakes? What are just the basics that I need? And then you need to think about, what's the strategy for how I win? strategy is simply how you win. And people need to think about that more in terms of just treading water and doing quantitative actions. It's like, what are the actions I need to take to win?
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think, going after, links that are kind of natural to some extent, not only are you kind of tapping into your own resources, but it just feels like you're more likely to actually kind of generate the goodwill from the other person to actually leave that backlink. So I think that is such a good way. When we first kind of started a backlink strategy way back when, it was more just kind of going out and asking a lot of strangers, and that had a pretty terrible return in terms of people that were actually, other companies or firms or whatnot. But definitely when there was more of like a organic reason, whether that was through some sort of shared content, CLE offering that was kind of a joint effort or whatever it might be. We did a couple of guest blogs back and forth with some firms where you can kind of generate like a mutual backlink. But yeah, those kind of normal organic ways of creating that have been, personally on our end, much more successful.
And I think the key thing you said there is ask. You want more reviews, you have to ask. You want to speak at more legal conferences, you have to ask. You want to do this and that, you have to ask. If you want more links, if you have relationships, you just have to ask. So it's the media, it could be non-competing attorneys in other jurisdictions, your referral partners, all of those different types of opportunities. You're a sponsor, you've already contributed, then ask for a link to your website. And that will go a long way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it is something that is hard to be intentional about, and I think it's a place where having a marketing company, marketing firm that's helping you with these things is really powerful, because even if you already have the relationships built in, or you're sponsoring certain events or regularly teaching, if there's no kind of like normal vehicle for capturing online, what you're doing, or posting updates, or having some sort of a kind of regular update to your own website, or request for more backlinks, it's not going to happen. And so I think that's one of the challenges really of a lot of us as small criminal defense law firm owners, is that becomes such a back burner item. I mean, just getting the website up and trying to put aside the time to go to this organization and be a part of that, moment that you're sponsoring, to go to, teach at a CLE, following up with those items is such a difficult piece. And so when you have somebody that's kind of concentrating on, hey, saw that you went and did this event, why don't we post something on social media about that? Why don't we ask this company to leave us a backlink? Hey, I'll write the copy on that. We'll send it out and see if they'll bite on it. I think that is such a powerful part of what an SEO company brings to the table, is that follow up.
Yeah, and it's also, this reminds me of that book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan, right? And I'm gonna, before I talk about link building, let's just use an everyday example. If you have to mow your grass, you have to learn how to do it. What mower to get, when am I going to do it? It's your time and slow. Versus you hire a landscaper or someone to mow your yard, it's exponential and fast, because they already have a process for it. They already know how to do it. They schedule and do it, right? So it's the same thing with an agency or SEO. You can learn how to do it, and it's your time. Or you find the right who, and it's exponential and fast, because that's all they do. They have a process for it. And it comes back to control as well. And delegation. I know a lot of people struggle with that, but it is letting go a little bit of control if you bring other people in.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think that's why it's so important to to find the right person to do that. We have had a number of different SEO companies and individuals kind of work on our website in the past. Finally my brother took over our SEO a few years back, and then has kind of like passed that on to another fellow that is now doing it for us when he took his current position. But there is such a trust factor there, I think, because if you don't understand what's working in terms of the Google Analytics, how things are being recognized, how to rank well, there's so many good salespeople on the SEO side of things that see, kind of dollar signs over law firms that don't really kind of then execute on actually making what they say is going to happen. So in terms of kind of what to look for in a marketing agency, what would be some kind of like qualifying questions or things that you would, encourage lawyers to think about when they're trying to find that right who?
Good questions. There's so much was going on in my head. The first thing I was thinking about was, we all outsource every single day. When we don't make every single turkey sandwich and meal for ourselves,
Right.
We go out to eat. And just because you eat at a few McDonald's doesn't necessarily mean there's Capital Grill or insert nice restaurant, right?
Right.
So those questions, the first one is, if it's a quick sales process, it's probably not a good sign, because they really need to understand your particular issues as well as your competitors, and benchmark against them. Every geography, every location, every practice area is different. You could be in a small market but have a lot of competition. You could be in a big market and be surprised that the digital competition isn't there. So the questions asked would just be, how many links do I need to acquire? What's my competition look like? Where's my competitive content weak? Do you have month-to-month contracts where I'm not held into a long-term agreement, because that benefits them, not you.
Right.
Do you have case studies or testimonials from individuals you helped in the past? Can I speak to them?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that's a great thing to ask for.
Yeah. And I would even look for, with these month-to-month contracts, it's work with them for a month. And if you don't have a good feeling, it's Occam's razor. It's probably not going to work out long run, right? The simplest solution. There's all those types of things. It's just making sure that you do your due diligence in vetting the person, just like before you would hire an employee, where you do personality assessments, you have all these interviews, you may even have them do some work, and then you call their references, and you can even call, individuals they've helped in terms of projects and stuff, right? If you're hiring an employee, you go through all this due diligence just to find this perfect employee. And the same type of effort needs to go into that process when hiring an agency.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is such great advice all around. I mean, that when it comes to your online presence, your web presence, I mean, that is now such a huge part of your overall brand, and making sure that is, being promoted in the right way, and that you're kind of looking at things from the long term. I think one of the things that is healthy about kind of like going into a relationship with an agency, looking at the long term and not necessarily demanding short-term results, is that's really the only way to build success, is to go at it from a long-term side of things. But I think that a lot of agencies use that as well. It's going to take 3 months or 6 months or a year to start ranking, and that's fine. I mean, that if you're honest about that up front, I actually think that that's better, so that you don't set the bar too high, and then you're kind of at different states after that 3 or 6 month period of time. But the contracts that kind of correspond with that, instead of just saying, well, if you don't like how we're moving towards that end goal within 2 months, you walk away. That's totally in your wheelhouse. So, I think that is such a, playing the long game is important, but I do think that there's companies out there that kind of take advantage of that by saying, you can't expect us to hit these things within a certain time period. And so we only want a commitment if you're, willing to go kind of 12 months. And then if you haven't seen the results after 12 months, it's, you haven't had any benchmarks of like, are we on the way? Are we moving up the ladder? Does it seem like we're, growing our, in terms of how Google's, ranking us? Is our website score kind of moving in the right direction? Then that's problematic. So I think that is such a good way of thinking about it in terms of vetting your SEO company the same way you would want to with a new employee, and kind of having some sort of like almost even an onboarding process and thought process of how am I going to evaluate from my end of things if this relationship seems to be working 30 days in, 90 days in. Does this seem to be like a good fit? Am I getting enough feedback or outreach from this SEO company? So just knowing what you're expecting going in and putting it down on paper, thinking through what it is that you're hoping for is going to go a long way in terms of first of all, communicating to your partner, how is this going to work? But secondly, in terms of whether it is working for you.
1000%. You need to agree upon KPIs that are objective, not subjective. You may like the person, right? But objectively, here are the quantitative actions that you agreed upon. They're being missed. Right? You need to see these numbers as a leading indicator of success, and the individuals need to be transparent so you can hold them accountable. It's the same thing for in-house employees. If we agree that you're going to do X, Y, Z things, and I'm going to measure these, and if you don't do it, like, look, you could be the best person in the world. It's much easier. I always say I have like emotional Chris on my shoulder, and I have a robotic Chris, but like emotional Chris just loves everybody, and I don't want to, but when I look and you're just not doing your work, robotic, it's like, easy decision. And those individuals that say, yeah, we're link building in air quotes. Okay, show me the links. How many links did you acquire this month? How many links that we need to acquire in order to close the gap to our competition? And you could get even granular from there, but it's holding them to objective data.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so helpful. It just makes for a better relationship all around when you're just operating on the same page. Because even if you're both, kind of moving in the right direction, so to speak, but you're not speaking the same KPI language, it's really hard 2 or 3 months in to feel like things are. That you have a pulse on whether or not you're kind of moving in the right direction, even if it is behind the scenes kind of going where you want it to go. So I think establishing those things up front is so healthy for that trust relationship. It really is a place that I think most small firm owners struggle with almost more than any other space, because we as lawyers, you like to figure, we're problem solvers. You like to figure everything out. And, for so much of what's happening online, that is just such a big black box. And so it's difficult to be able to assess whether or not the work that needs to get done is actually getting done.
Completely agree. You need to have some basis of knowledge in order to evaluate, if the individual's doing what they said they're going to do. And, because SEO, a lot of times it's like magic, right?
Right.
Especially if the agency's not being transparent and they're not showing the links. It's like there's just a lot of trust, right? But that goes with anything.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the things that you have emphasized and have recently published a book on this topic is niching down. And so in terms of kind of thoughts about creating a niche practice, or what that even means to build a niche practice. If you wouldn't mind to just kind of share a little bit about, kind of why you think that is so important.
In today's day and age, we're all sentients. We all have our mobile device nearby, and all businesses are essentially on the same street, where the street is the mobile device. And it's, how are you different? That exercise, when you have some introspection and you think about how you're different, is a challenging one in the legal vertical, because it's so saturated. But one way that you can stand out and be different is to niche, is to become an expert in a particular area. So instead of competing with everyone, you compete with fewer, and you can go deeper. You actually do become an expert because that's what you're working on at all times. Malcolm Gladwell says you need 10,000 hours in a craft. Well, imagine you were doing criminal law and PI law and bankruptcy and just taking everything. You could never truly become an expert, or it would take many, 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 many years to become an expert. So it's a way to stand out. It's also a way to receive referrals. Instead of that's the criminal defense attorney. No, that's the guy that specializes in, I don't know, theft, right? This isn't
exactly.
Yeah. So, as you can see, I don't have the examples because I'm an expert PI in personal injury. I can go really deep there in car and slip and fall and torts and whatever. When you also become an expert, you gain an awareness of opportunities. There may be a certain type of criminal defense that you become aware of that lends itself to opportunities. So a lot of times, the reason I wrote it, and it's niching up, the narrower the market, the bigger the prize. That's the name of the book. The reason I wrote it is because most people automatically have a scarcity mindset. They think of less opportunity, a smaller addressable market. But really, you're already losing when you try to be everything to everyone. And I understand there's a little fear, but it gives you an identity. It helps you stand out, and it does create an abundance and opportunity.
Yeah. And I think it's also just, it's easier to brand when you have something that is unique, something that you can kind of become known for, whether that's in the legal community or, direct to consumer in your own, local town, or on social media, wherever it is that you're kind of putting your information out there. Having that ability to kind of tell people precisely what you do just becomes more memorable than saying, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a criminal defense lawyer, in these kind of generic categories. And as we are all I love that analogy of kind of all being on the same street via the mobile device, because it is the great equalizer at this point. I mean, there really is such a powerful 10, 15 years ago, having a website was the great equalizer, right? Like, I mean, you really could compete, right out of law school. You could, start getting cases just by putting yourself up there on the web. Same thing now with the mobile device. In a lot of ways, it's the great equalizer for the young, hungry attorney, compared with, a firm that's got 7-8 lawyers that's been around for 30-40 years, because there's just such a ease of access to that point. And so the more that you can communicate to Google, and thereby to the person looking you up on the other end, this person fits my exact need, which Google is trying to help them find, you just have such a better shot of getting that call.
1,000%. And you also know where those individuals congregate. If I'm a DUI attorney, probably universities and where the bar scene is, and, festivals, things like that. Where to advertise. So you maximize your marketing spend, your time. There's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of ways to do this. A lot of times you'll hear attorneys, they'll say, you need to be a top 3 spender to saturate a market, right? If you're not going to be in the top 3, don't do it. And you know why that is? It's because they have a very bland, generic message, and they have to pump a ton of dollars into it in order to be memorable. versus creating a unique identity that is truly unique, you don't have to do that. You automatically stand out.
Yeah, that's amazing. In terms of the way that kind of the SEO world is working, do you kind of, in terms of being an SEO specialist and talking with other people that are in the industry, is that something that is kind of universally recognized at this point as that's the kind of future of where marketing your company is going, because Google is getting so much better at like reading, does this business respond to this, consumers' needs?
It's a good question. So Google obviously is where a lot of attention is. All marketing is attention arbitrage. It's where do consumers congregate. In the beginning, several years ago, it was only Google, right? So, that's where consumers would go to find an attorney. Now it's kind of shifting. They may go to social media. They may ask their friends. They may go to YouTube or TikTok or wherever. It's wherever attention lies, there can be a marketing opportunity. And look, it's SEO, the landscape, it's become more competitive and the real estate has shrunk. There's still a tremendous amount of opportunity, a tremendous amount of search, but you constantly have to be evolving. In the past, the phone book, Yellow Pages, and even the TV guide were good because that's where attention was. But once it shifted, you have to shift as well. And that's where the arbitrage game plays.
And in terms of kind of where you see the most ability to maximize the, either return on investment, whether that's dollars or just time, what platforms do you see kind of having the biggest return on investment currently?
It's going to be different for everyone, but let me just say generally, and I'm going to answer this from a PI perspective, so this isn't going to be perfect for the criminal defense side.
No, that's great.
But I'll say that LSA, local maps, and search are really strong, low cost per acquisition. Google ads, if you can get under a 3K, you're winning. I don't know very many people that can. There's still a lot of opportunity for social, low cost there. And then, I would say the age-old ways of just networking and referrals are never going anywhere, being a part of your community. But all advertising works. It's just the level, the cost involved to acquire those impressions. And that's why I have to give like a generic answer, because look, if let me give a different PI example, and I'll try to give a criminal one if I can. I'll dabble in that. But let's say I'm a motorcycle accident attorney. Well, I want to build relationships with the Harley dealers. I want to go to every motorcycle event. I want to do, have landing pages specific to motorcycles. Your advertising, I want to be a part of Facebook groups that have motorcycle communities, and it just shifts like where you need to put your dollars. If I was a nursing home attorney, I might want to be advertising, where nursing homes and older senior citizens congregate, that demo. If I was let's say a drug offense attorney, I don't know where do those situations occur. It's just going to be different for everyone, but it's just being cognizant of where your potential consumer congregates.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that is such an important thing, and it's one of the reasons that for us, in the DWI space where we spend a lot of time on, it's an interesting space because there's not, a real easy like demographic in terms of who is likely to get these type of charges. You definitely can kind of identify locations, in terms of where people might be more likely to be leaving from and getting a charge and that type of thing. But it really kind of does go somewhat outside of like socioeconomic classes, which is kind of interesting because you get to meet people of all walks of life. But I do think that one of the places where there's a real powerful way of kind of networking, connecting on that point or on that front is in kind of being part of the solution. So working with people that are helping to combat addiction, dealing with substance use disorders, and kind of getting into that network. So even if you're not kind of directly networking with your maybe end consumer, well, maybe this is then somebody that is referred from this other help point that person comes into contact with, or just by being a part of regularly acting well and sponsoring these type of things, you're gaining that brand just through that outreach. So I do think it's important to identify where do those kind of community-based networking opportunities exist. Where can I go to talk to the people that are going to talk to my clients?
Couldn't agree more.
What in terms of kind of the niching side of things, what is kind of the way that you talk to your clients on how to communicate their niche brand? So let's say you have a attorney that kind of hones in on sexual assault cases, or on drug crimes, on theft related charges, DWI, whatever it might be. What are some of the ways that from an SEO side of things you look to kind of showcase that niche brand?
I would say it's all going to be around the copywriting, but first there needs to be a discovery process in terms of demographics, geographics, psychographics, in terms of your avatar, the language that they use, the words and phrases that they're accustomed to, and how you want to position yourself. All that needs to be uncovered before you just dive right into copy. And if not, you just want to speak to the consumer with empathy and EQ, and then just, target keywords that they would type in. But, I would say a lot of times people just go build a website, or they go write a landing page without the strategy. Strategy is missing 99% of the time. It's how do we win? How do we achieve our goal? And it's slowing it down a little bit in the beginning, but being very intentional about the words and phrases that you use in terms of hitting the psychographics and demographics properly.
Yeah, I love that. I think that strategy of trying to think like your ideal client is so critical, and it is, I think, wildly different. And this is something that in the criminal defense realm, I do think that there's a lot of law firms that are kind of missing that kind of different psychology of clients dealing with different types of charges. For for a DWI client, I think a lot of our clients recognize that they made a mistake. This was kind of accident. There was no real intentional wrongdoing in terms of like deliberately going out and drinking and driving. That's not true of everybody, but there's this embarrassment and shame. And then for somebody that is let's say in a major drug operation, very different mindset and psychology in terms of what is driving that, what are they looking for out of representation, what is going to be valued in terms of what you're, as the attorney, bring to the table. So by niching up, as you call it, I think not only does it communicate to the client what you do, but you're able then also to have a better sense of what your client is looking for. And so as you're speaking to them using that copy on your website, you're speaking more directly. We handle other types of cases, traffic, assault charges, drug cases. But if you went to the website, it's going to be speaking to you way more if you're charged with a DWI than if you're charged with any of these other crimes, because that's who we're speaking to. We're speaking to the person that's charged with driving while impaired. And, maybe that's a negative if you come across our website versus others for some of those other types of charges. It's like, well, these people seem to be focusing in on this, or that's not really how I'm feeling. But for the client that is charged with kind of the area that we're kind of zeroed in on, it's much easier for them to kind of get on board and say, okay, this is what we're looking at. So I think that's a big miss, because I think for most criminal defense attorneys, the psychology between one crime and the next is just assumed to be the same, and it's wildly different.
I completely agree. There's perceived expertise there.
Well, in terms of, any kind of success traits that you've seen with lawyers online, or anything that you kind of think is the next, next big thing for attorneys to be working on to kind of get their footprint SEO wise. Chris, maybe we'll end with this. What do you think are some of the kind of like keys to success in the future for building a quality SEO firm?
One of the keys is going to be reviews. If you have a better system of acquiring reviews, you stand a greater likelihood to succeed. Another one would be finding a way to utilize leverage or create leverage. So maybe you get associated with the media where your content is cited more frequently, or you are asked to quote and be an expert. Those are huge advantages, huge barriers of entry. I think just in general, not even SEO, just in general, we need to be aware of leverage. This podcast that I'm on right now, I mean, I don't know your downloads, but it's like a keynote presentation every single week that you have an episode, versus like traveling and going to stand out in front of a stage, and you have your expertise in their ear. So it's being aware of leverage. I'd say the biggest challenge I face as owning an SEO agency is the review side, because we can write great content, we can acquire links and all these things, right? But we can't control the experience that a consumer has at the firm. And no matter how much we coach up our clients in terms of the processes or the tools or the tech stack, that's more on them, right? So there's joint accountability when you work with an agency. Here's what we have to do, and here's what you have to do to succeed. And that's the name of the game.
Yeah, the reviews are something we have kind of like, I feel like that's almost part of any team presentation that I give anymore. It's like, oh, he's going to talk about reviews again. But outside of Google reviews, are there any other platforms that you've kind of seen be a good space to kind of concentrate on trying to generate reviews?
All the above, right? Yelp, it's hard to get them to stick. Better Business Bureau, it could be some legal sites. All the above, because think about this. Yes, reviews count in terms of social proof for conversions, but if Google has over 200 ranking factors for organic SEO, do you think they're only going to count a Google review in terms of your local map rankings? Probably not. It's probably the most heavily weighted, but Facebook and these other areas, you need to concentrate on getting reviews there too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that creating that leverage, that is such a good point of emphasis, because you really do have the ability to, again, level the playing field by doing that. I mean, again, it doesn't matter how long that you've been practicing. Anybody can start a podcast. Anybody can, try to go out and start creating some of these, network opportunities where you're getting more exposure, you're getting more opportunity to generate backlinks. So that is just, sweat equity, but it makes it easier to compete if you're kind of newer into the marketplace. So I love that. And if you've been in the marketplace for a while, it's a great place to then kind of like drive a further wedge into the, difference between you and the rest of the market, because now everybody recognizes that you are the kind of go-to person in this particular industry. So everything that you can do to kind of, I would say, leveraging and niching almost go like hand in hand with one another. In some sense, it's becoming that kind of known expert in the area. So I love that.
Thank you.
Well, if anybody wants to reach out to you, Chris, to kind of talk about, what you guys are doing on the SEO front, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So I'll give 3 ways real quick.
Awesome.
If you want to connect with me personally, I'm most active on LinkedIn. That's the one social media network that I'm really active on. If you want to check out my website and what we do, it's rankings.io. So we specialize in personal injury marketing. So if you happen to be one of the PI listening, we'll help you out. If not, I can point you in the right direction. And then the final one is if you want to check out my book, Niching Up, The Narrower the Market, The Bigger the Prize. It's available at Amazon.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate so much, Chris, you coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
If you found the information in this podcast to be valuable, I simply ask that you pay it forward and share this podcast with another member of the legal community. Also, if you would leave us a rating or a review on whatever platform you are listening on, I would greatly appreciate it.